What's up, guys? I'm Joe. Today I'm talking about the new Ghost album, Prequelle. So, Ghost are back. This is their fourth studio album, Prequelle, coming off the heels of a very successful album, Memoria, followed up by the Popestar EP, which was also pretty successful given the single Square Hammer. That carried them through a pretty lengthy tour. They did their own thing when they were opening up for Iron Maiden for a while. The band really gaining a lot more traction in the course of that album cycle, traction which they had already been kind of propelled into with the previous two releases. I was sort of drawn to them earlier on, admittedly, by the whole kind of gimmick behind it. You couldn't really help the curiosity that comes with, seeing the figures in the band, the Papa figure, the nameless ghouls with the masks. I was drawn into the idea of it, ended up really liking the music. But of course, with any successful band comes a lot of debate, especially in the metal community. Now, don't get me wrong, metal fans are some of the greatest people out there. Just go to any metal show, it's really great. But when it comes to defining metal, people like to get a little picky. And this is one of those bands where you can look at pretty much any Facebook post or YouTube video, and you're going to find some arguing in the comments about whether this band really is metal. Are they just rock? Are they hard rock? What are they? And admittedly, Prequelle is not going to do anything to win over the naysayers into thinking that they're a metal band, because really this is some of the band's lightest material to date. And I'll say right off the bat, this is something that works for me. I do enjoy the album quite a lot. And following Memoria, it's kind of a sound I wanted to hear them try out. I know originally they were talking about how this was going to be the heaviest album to date, really going back to the beginning with that Opus album. And it's really just not what has come to fruition. I think what happened is they had some hits with Memoria, and Square Hammer was a pretty big radio hit. So they wanted to kind of lean into that, make these stadium-sized songs for a band that has ultimately become an arena-filling band now. And as they prepare for this arena tour, they have a bunch of songs on here that have a very, glam-based, bombastic 80s rock sound, which is something that I really wanted them to do. Because personally, some of my favorite moments on Memoria was when they really leaned into that sound. See the outro of Absolution, which is just gloriously 80s sounding with those dueling guitars, just very huge, very uplifting, just this big sound. And you're kind of getting that here on this album. Granted, you get a few rockers on here that are more akin to the Ghost we've heard in the past. You start off with intro track Ashes, which I think leads well into Rats. I think it's a pretty cool transition. Rats I did a reaction review to, but I'll talk about it a little bit here anyway, because I still really love the song. The drums just give it such a nice driving force. You get some really cool Iron Maiden-esque riffs going on. And ultimately, I really love the way the song builds up. The chorus the first time around is just Rats. And then the second time around, you add these backing vocals, and it just continues to build. And that's a theme throughout the album musically. All these songs start in one place, and they end up really big and in another, which is something I love when bands do. Up next is Faith, which is, a pretty standard Ghost song at this point. It's kind of like a groovy, heavy rocker. Kind of feels like a Cerise Part 2. In its execution. They do change it up with some of the guitar leads here. There are some really cool quick leads in the beginning that make their way throughout the song, which is cool. Well, I think it's a good song. I think they've done this kind of sound better before on previous albums, which was why I was kind of happy to see them go into a slightly different direction for the rest of the record. If anything, they're leaning into that theatrical side of their act more than ever. A lot of these songs, including these instrumental tracks you have on here, feel like they could be part of some metal odyssey or some metal opera, which kind of makes me wonder. There is like a general theme behind this album of like medieval times, the Black Death, stuff like that. With this sort of theatrical sound, it makes me wonder what a full rock opera would be like from Ghost, like a story from beginning, middle to end. Maybe something they'll be going into in the future if this is received well, which I think so far it does seem to be. But this huge kind of bombastic operatic feel is definitely prevalent on a song like Pro Memoria. One of my favorites on the album, which at first, the chorus, the Don't You Forget About Dying, I thought that was kind of goofy and weird at first, but after listening to the song a couple of times, it's really just about how the instrumentation builds that makes me love this thing. There's a lot of piano-driven stuff towards the later half of this album. I think it works well. I love everything that's going on with the piano, especially in Pro Memoria. The way it roots the chords in the verses just sounds really great. I love the way, as I said, the instrumentation of the song builds up later on, and it makes that kind of weird chorus at first that when it's really minimal, it sounds weird. Later on, it sounds pretty great. But personally, I think the verses are a lot catchier than that chorus. But from this song through the next couple, you're getting all these sort of different added instruments that we haven't heard so far with Ghost. You're getting a lot of orchestration in Memoria. In Witch Image, you're getting this really nice flute part I think it's flute that's added to the pre-choruses. One of my favorite moments on the album is Witch Image, actually. It just packs a really nice punch to it and a nice, like, kind of kick in the album. There have been these sort of longer drawn out tracks, so you get a nice punchy, sort of heavy one towards the end there. I think it has some of the catchiest moments going for it as far as the vocals go, and like I said, that kind of different instrumentation is just really cool. And that continues on into the next instrumental, Helveta something or other. I'm not going to try to pronounce that, sorry guys. But just a really solid instrumental as well as Miasma. I really like instrumental songs as long as they kind of give you something to make you want to go back, whether it's, you know, Rush doing YYZ and you just love hearing the kind of showing off of the instrumentals, or like songs like this that just like kind of take you on a sort of journey musically. Miasma, as it builds up, has some really great outro parts as far as the guitar is concerned, a lot of cool synths and very sci-fi sounding keyboards in there as well. Probably my least favorite song on the album would be Dance Macabre, the second single. I was really thrown off by that one once it came out. Personally, looking back now, I think Witch Image would have been a better second single. But I see what they're going for here. They want a hit, they want a radio song, they want a big stadium song. I get it. It just kind of, for me, that song takes away from like the feel of the album. There doesn't seem to be too much in the lyrics like on the creepy Ghost side. It just seems more like a love song, and maybe if you read into it more, maybe it's about a dead person or something like that, who knows. But if anything, the sound of the song feels like a sped up version of like an 80s glam metal ballad. I could totally hear it in that kind of setting, and while I don't think it's a bad song, I don't skip over it, I haven't yet. It's definitely the weakest one on the album for me. See the Light's an interesting one too, definitely leaning into that popular 80s sound as well, as far as those verses go especially. For some reason kind of reminds me of Journey or something like that, which, you know, as I mentioned Absolution before, that outro totally reminded me of Journey, which I think is great. And this one has a cool, like, kind of anthemic chorus to it as well. And finally, Life Eternal ends things on the album. I was a little concerned on first listen, it felt like it was just going to end on a sort of very slow ballad, but again, this is a song that just expertly builds up like the rest of the album does. And once you get to the end, it's just so rich as far as the instrumentals go. That really makes for a great ending to the record. So overall, definitely not disappointed by Prequelle, which was one of my most anticipated albums of this year. Hoping to catch them on tour again. I've seen them a few times now, but would love to hear some of these new tunes live. I'm feeling a strong 4 out of 5 for this one. Definitely not their best. They have a lot of great albums, in my opinion, to go up against already so early in their career. So definitely not a slight against it. Not my favorite Ghost album, but just definitely a strong 4 out of 5 for me. So let me know what you think of the album in the comments, whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong. As always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all next time, and don't forget to subscribe.